Agile Ceremonies. What I want to do is give you a quick overview of what the Agile Ceremonies are, and I want to use a cooking example or like a restaurant example because I think this is going to be very simple and easy for you to digest. Get it? All right, so instead of using a more traditional software or other kind of project management world that you might live in, let's take things down a little bit simpler. Let's say, for instance, you have this restaurant that you own and you are the ones that are needing to operate in an agile manner because instead of a very fixed menu, you actually have a very robust menu that is determined by a very small clientele of customers or in the business that we are going to be able to deliver to their needs. So we have a product owner, and the product owner is going to own a backlog. And the backlog is similar to our menu in a way, but remember our menu is dynamic in this scenario. So we're going to be adding things to this. We're going to remove things based on the needs and the whims of our customers that are special clientele. And the product owner then needs to be able to figure out what is going to be on this backlog, what's most important, what's going to appeal to our business folk that are visiting our restaurant. And with this backlog then, we're going to put a little bit of time boxing to it. So let's say that it is 8 a.m. and we have a window of lunch between 12 and 1 p.m. And so we have then a very strict dedicated time period in which our team must determine what we're going to do for lunch and what we're going to be serving. So the product owner and us, the team, will all come together at this first point in time. And we call this sprint planning or simply iteration planning. So during this sprint planning, we might take this first hour of our time or even half hour, depending on how we divide things up. But for example, let's just say we have this half hour, and what we're going to do is take everything that's on that backlog, and the product owner is going to give his or her priorities, his or her expectations of what the customers are going to want for today's lunch. It's also going to take into consider what has happened in previous lunches, as well as their conversations and of what has been found at the market and what we know is readily available, the type of season, and any other kind of circumstances. So the team then is going to also look at the timeline that they have. Well, they only have until noon to be able to get all the work done, and they don't want to have something not finished. So it's very important that all these things actually can be done within the time limit that we have set. Anything longer than that, we won't be able to deliver during the lunchtime. So we need to make sure that anything that us as a team, the chefs, are committing to can be in fact done in the time limit. And we're not trying to take on too much because our plates can only handle so much effort and food, and there's only a certain amount of resources, only a certain amount of time in our kitchen. Hence, we need to come to an agreement with our product owner of what is feasible and what can in fact be committed to, because we are promising that when we get to that table and the food is being served, we are in fact serving everything that we had said we would do. And if not, well, we'll talk about that. We'll get the feedback. We'll learn from every time we are running our sprints, but we need to make sure that we're delivering something. And these stories of the food that we are wanting, these moments of delicacies, we want to be able to have within the time limits that we have set, and so that we can deliver on time. So sprint planning is that commitment. So with that plan in mind, us as a team then can go ahead and do it. The Scrum Master can be sort of one of those chefs that just make sure that everything is taken care of. Maybe as the team is working on the cooking, they can express some questions about, well, wait, do we want it spicy or extra spicy, or does it need to be more mild? Those kind of clarification questions, maybe the Scrum Master can go talk back with the product owner just to figure out what is it, or get some more clarity or get some more feedback or understanding. The Scrum Master can also help set up some of those daily huddles. So maybe what we call daily stand-ups may, in fact, in this very short time period of just a 4-hour time box, these may happen every hour. And what essentially that will do is the team can huddle together very quickly just to say, all right, you go this way, you go that way. This is what needs to be done. This is what I've already done. And it's our way to stay synchronized, stay connected. So as everyone is flying around the kitchen doing this and that, we need to make sure that we are, in fact, not running into each other or forgetting something very important. So as self-organizing teams, we need to stay well informed of what is going on, what still needs to be done, so that everything, in fact, needs to be there, because we would hate to deliver a piece of food missing the sauce. Sauce is very important to our delicacies. So in that case, we need to make sure that we stay coordinated during our execution of the iteration, hence those daily stand-ups. Now, when we get to a point where we are going to be delivering the food, we might even consider that the sprint review. This is when we get together with the customers, with our product owner, and we're going to share with them what we've created. Now, some things might be finished early, and we might need to show it to the product owner, get his or her acceptance, get some feedback. But generally, we typically aim for all the food, all the items to happen within a sprint review window or ceremony. And so that ceremony then happens when we come to the table and we serve the meal. The food then, of course, will be meeting the expectations or accepted, or maybe we need to send it back to the kitchen to get fixed a little bit more, and we'll try to do this all within the time limit. But there are going to be times where the food, as we expected, does not meet its criteria. Maybe it falls short, and in that case, we're going to have to move that food item to the backlog, and maybe that food getting back on the backlog will be maybe worked on in the next sprint, or what we might think is an iteration, which you can guess is probably dinner or maybe lunch tomorrow. We'll figure that out. We'll put it back on the backlog. We'll look at what was already worked on, what was done. Maybe there will be some other hour from now that maybe we can all come back and get this work done. In any case, it goes to the backlog and we will work on that later. But the rest of the food that was in fact delivered will be taken off the backlog, or maybe another version of that will be prepared in a future case, because we're going to learn from what has happened in this delivery, because we're going to get that feedback. We have this minimal viable product. We're going to learn from it. We're going to expand upon it. We're going to add more maybe ingredients, or maybe a little bit more of a flair. The other thing we can do, though, is this backlog needs to be groomed. It needs to be refined. So sometime during this sprint, that 4-hour window that our team is working on delivering the food, we might take this opportunity to prepare this backlog for the future, because we know that there is going to be dinner tonight, there is dinner over the weekend, and there is also going to be lunch tomorrow as well. So maybe as we are looking at the food and how it's delivered, maybe certain things are not going to make it in this particular time. And so we might already know ahead of time that this is something that we'll probably need to hold off and wait for dinner, or let it cook a little bit longer, or do something else to it. Maybe it's going to be something that, based on these ingredients, we're going to have extra ingredients that would fit perfectly into a perfect lunch that would be for tomorrow. Also, the product owner might be looking at what has been collected from the market today and maybe is already setting aside the expectations for what we want in the next 1, 2, 3, or 4. Ideally, we want to look that far out on those different iterations. That way we can start preparing ahead of time, getting a roadmap, getting a sense of what is coming so that we can figure out what is the best way to arrange our meals, our vision, the dependencies between the different ingredients, or the things that need to cook a little bit longer or be built upon. But we are really seeking out to build this backlog refinement inside of our sprints so that we have better preparation for the next sprint instead of being surprised or having to try to do everything during the sprint planning. So the sprint planning then is our chance to commit and figure out all the tasks that need to be done for our particular sprint that we're working on. We then serve the food. We work together during our daily stand-ups, but in the review is when meal is demonstrated and the work has now been validated or given feedback to. And then the one last final thing is that when we're cleaning up the kitchen, everything is done and the meal is finished, it's good for us to have a retrospective where we as a team think about how we worked together well and where we didn't, where things can be improved. How is our communication? How are things flowing and going? Because we got lunch tomorrow, or heck, we've got dinner tonight that we all must work together on. And we want to keep getting better. We want to improve. We want to learn from each other. And so we want to take advantage of those learning opportunities. And if we don't take time to pause and have these retrospectives, we might not really appreciate everything we are doing and how we've done it. And so those are the minimal ceremonies in any sprint in an agile way, as you see can work in a restaurant, but more precisely, it's built for us in other forms of project management. And that's a quick look at the Agile Ceremonies.
And that's a quick introduction to one of my new lessons coming as part of the PMP rewrite. You can find more out at thecrowdtraining.com, and you can see more of the new PM City coming soon.